What if I told you that the very qualities that make you an exceptional professional, your generosity, trust, and willingness to mentor others, might be setting you up for the most devastating betrayals of your career? Here's a controversial truth that most leadership experts won't tell you. In today's corporate environment, your biggest professional threats don't come from obvious competitors or external challenges. They come from the colleagues sitting right next to you, the ones you're actively helping to succeed. Marcus had always been one of those professionals who couldn't see someone needing help without extending a hand. When Sarah arrived at the company as the new project coordinator, he noticed she was carrying several boxes of promotional materials alone to the office on the third floor. Without thinking twice, he abandoned what he was doing and offered to help, even knowing that wasn't part of his responsibilities as logistics supervisor. The trust he placed in people had always been his trademark, and that simple gesture seemed natural for someone who believed the professional environment should be a place of collaboration. Sarah smiled gratefully and accepted the help, commenting how rare it was to find such helpful colleagues on the very first day. For Marcus, helping wasn't a favor. It was building a solid foundation of mutual loyalty that would make all the difference in the corporate daily routine. As a way of saying thanks, Sarah invited him for coffee in the company break room during their break. What started as a simple thank you turned into a 2-hour conversation about professional challenges, career goals, and the difficulty of adapting to a new work environment. Marcus shared his experiences at the company, gave valuable tips on how to navigate the organizational culture, and even suggested strategies for dealing with workplace frustration when projects didn't go as planned. There was something refreshing about her genuine interest in learning and growing professionally. The conversation flowed so naturally that neither of them noticed how much time had passed, and Marcus felt that rare connection you find when you meet someone who truly values professional growth and mutual support. In the following days, Marcus found himself checking in on Sarah's adaptation process. He would stop by her department with some excuse, bringing reports that could have been emailed, asking about project updates that weren't urgent, or simply offering to help with any challenges she might be facing. His colleagues started noticing this pattern, but Marcus justified it as good mentorship and team building. After all, ensuring new team members felt supported was part of creating a positive work environment, right? The truth was, he had developed a genuine appreciation for her work ethic and professional approach, and he wanted to see her succeed in the company. What he didn't realize was that his helpful nature was about to teach him a harsh lesson about trust and loyalty in professional settings. Sometimes the very people we invest our time and energy in professionally can surprise us in the most disappointing ways. On the 6th day, Marcus was walking past the executive conference room when he saw Sarah inside, laughing and having what appeared to be a very friendly conversation with David, the marketing director, who had been her direct competitor for the coordinator position. They were reviewing documents together, and their body language suggested a level of familiarity that went beyond professional courtesy. Marcus felt a strange knot in his stomach, but he tried to rationalize it. Maybe they were just collaborating on a project. However, the way Sarah was leaning in, the shared smiles, and David's obvious comfort level made Marcus question everything he thought he knew about workplace dynamics. The scene triggered that uncomfortable feeling you get when you realize you might have been naive about someone's true intentions. Later that afternoon, he overheard Sarah telling another colleague that she had always planned to work closely with David, and that their previous conversations had been very promising. The next morning, Marcus discovered the truth when he accidentally saw an email thread between Sarah and David that had been forwarded to him by mistake. The messages dated back to before Sarah's official start date, revealing that she had been in contact with David throughout her interview process and had already agreed to share confidential information about the logistics department, Marcus's department, to help David's team optimize their supply chain operations. The betrayal hit him like a physical blow to the chest. All those conversations about trust, loyalty, and professional integrity had been nothing more than reconnaissance missions. Sarah had been using his helpful nature and genuine care for her success to gather inside information about departmental operations, vendor relationships, and strategic planning. The frustration of realizing he had been manipulated was overwhelming, but it was the sense of professional disappointment that cut the deepest. Marcus felt the familiar sting of learning that not everyone in the professional world operates with the same level of integrity. He had encountered this type of betrayal before in his career, but somehow he had hoped this time would be different. The lesson was clear. In the corporate world, trust should be earned gradually, not given freely from day one. He decided to take a step back and evaluate his approach to helping new colleagues, realizing that his eagerness to create a supportive environment had made him vulnerable to manipulation. The next day, when Sarah approached him with another request for help, Marcus politely declined, explaining that he needed to focus on his own departmental responsibilities. Her surprised expression told him everything he needed to know. She had been counting on his continued cooperation for her information-gathering efforts. The apprendizado from this experience would reshape how he approached professional relationships moving forward. A week later, Sarah sent Marcus a message asking why he had become so distant and whether she had done something wrong. Marcus sat at his desk for a long time, considering his response. Finally, he typed back a simple but powerful message. "I helped you settle in, not sell out." He never sent any follow-up explanation, and Sarah never asked for one. Months later, when Sarah's project failed due to the very information gaps that Marcus could have helped her avoid, she reached out again, this time asking for his expertise on a new initiative. Marcus forwarded her message to David with a note. "This consultation isn't for me to handle. Sometimes the best response to workplace betrayal is not anger or revenge, but simply the quiet dignity of knowing your worth and protecting your professional integrity. The superação comes not from getting even, but from learning to navigate the complex world of office politics with wisdom and discernment." Jennifer had always believed that knowledge sharing was the foundation of any successful tech team. When Alex joined the company as a junior developer, he seemed genuinely eager to learn and frequently reached out for guidance on complex coding challenges. Jennifer, being the senior IT support specialist, naturally took him under her wing, offering remote assistance during his late-night coding sessions and weekend project deadlines. The trust she placed in mentoring junior colleagues had always paid dividends in team cohesion and overall productivity. Alex would message her at all hours with technical questions, and Jennifer never hesitated to share her expertise, believing that investing in his professional development would strengthen the entire department. His gratitude seemed genuine, and his rapid improvement validated her mentoring approach. For Jennifer, helping junior developers wasn't just part of her job. It was about building a culture of collaboration and mutual support in the professional environment. Alex began inviting Jennifer to virtual coffee breaks between meetings, where their conversations gradually shifted from technical discussions to broader topics about career advancement, company politics, and strategic planning. Jennifer found herself sharing insights about upcoming system migrations, budget allocations, and departmental restructuring plans that she had learned through her years of experience and senior-level meetings. Alex listened intently, asked thoughtful questions, and seemed genuinely interested in understanding the bigger picture of their technology infrastructure. His curiosity about her career journey and the lessons she had learned from various projects made Jennifer feel valued as a mentor. The conversations were refreshing in a remote work environment where meaningful professional connections were rare. Jennifer appreciated having someone who seemed to truly understand the complexity of her role and the challenges of managing enterprise-level systems. In the following weeks, Alex continued reaching out for guidance, but his questions became increasingly specific about system vulnerabilities, access protocols, and security measures. Jennifer initially attributed this to his growing confidence and desire to understand advanced concepts. He would ask about backup procedures, disaster recovery plans, and the technical details of their cloud infrastructure management. His enthusiasm for learning seemed boundless, and Jennifer was impressed by his ability to grasp complex concepts quickly. She began sharing more detailed technical documentation and even gave him access to some monitoring tools to help with his learning process. What Jennifer didn't realize was that her generous sharing of knowledge and trust was setting the stage for a devastating professional betrayal. Sometimes the very eagerness to help and develop others can blind us to warning signs that should make us more cautious about information sharing. On the 8th day of their mentoring relationship, Jennifer discovered that Alex had been forwarding her technical explanations and confidential system information to Linda, the head of a competing department, who had been lobbying to absorb the IT support functions into her own team. Jennifer found out through a mistaken reply-all email, where Alex thanked Linda for the strategic guidance and confirmed that he had gathered the technical specifications they had discussed. The betrayal was like a digital punch to the gut. All those late-night help sessions, weekend troubleshooting calls, and detailed explanations about system architecture had been nothing more than corporate espionage disguised as professional development. Jennifer realized that Alex had been systematically extracting information about their department's capabilities, vulnerabilities, and operational procedures to help Linda build a case for the departmental merger. The frustration of being manipulated was compounded by the professional implications of her unwitting cooperation in undermining her own team. Jennifer had essentially provided the ammunition that Linda needed to argue that the IT support functions could be easily integrated into her department because the systems aren't as complex as they appear. Every technical question Alex had asked, every process he had wanted to understand, every system specification he had requested, it all made sense now in the context of Linda's reorganization proposal. The sense of professional betrayal cut deeper than any personal disappointment, because Jennifer realized that her commitment to mentoring and knowledge sharing had been weaponized against her own career and her team's job security. The very qualities that made her an excellent mentor, generosity with information, patience with questions, and trust in others' professional development, had been exploited for strategic advantage. Jennifer spent the weekend reflecting on this harsh lesson about workplace loyalty and the importance of protecting confidential information, even from seemingly well-intentioned colleagues. She realized that in her eagerness to foster a collaborative environment, she had failed to establish appropriate boundaries around sensitive information sharing. The apprendizado was painful but necessary. Not every request for help is genuine, and professional mentoring requires a balance between openness and discretion. On Monday, when Alex sent his usual morning message asking for help with a new learning project, Jennifer responded professionally but firmly, "I'll need to see official approval from your direct supervisor for any advanced technical training." His subsequent silence told her everything she needed to know about his true intentions and the authenticity of his learning goals. 2 months later, when Linda's departmental merger proposal was ultimately rejected due to insufficient technical understanding of the systems involved, Alex reached out to Jennifer again, this time asking if they could restart their mentoring relationship and whether she would consider recommending him for a senior position. Jennifer looked at the message for a long moment before crafting her response. "I mentor developers, not operatives." She copied his original supervisor on the reply and attached the forwarded emails that had revealed his true agenda. Sometimes the best response to professional betrayal is not silent suffering, but transparent communication that protects future colleagues from similar deception. The superassone came not from revenge, but from the wisdom to transform a painful experience into stronger professional boundaries and a more discerning approach to mentoring relationships. Robert had built his reputation as the kind of project manager who would always step up when his team needed support. When Maria joined their consulting firm as a business analyst, she quickly established herself as dedicated and hardworking, often staying late to perfect her client presentations. Robert noticed her commitment and began offering to cover some of her administrative tasks during particularly demanding project phases, believing that supporting team members during challenging periods was essential for maintaining high-performance standards. The trust he placed in his colleagues had always been reciprocated with loyalty and improved team dynamics. Maria seemed genuinely grateful for his support, often commenting on how rare it was to find managers who truly cared about their team's professional success. For Robert, covering extra responsibilities wasn't micromanagement. It was leadership through service, creating an environment where everyone could focus on their strengths and deliver exceptional results to clients. Maria began scheduling regular one-on-one meetings with Robert, ostensibly to discuss project strategies and client relationship management. These conversations often extended well beyond their scheduled time, with Maria asking detailed questions about Robert's approach to client acquisition, his relationships with senior partners, and his insights into upcoming business opportunities. Robert found himself sharing strategic information about potential contracts, client preferences, and the firm's competitive positioning in various markets. Maria listened attentively, took detailed notes, and seemed genuinely interested in learning from his years of experience in the consulting industry. Her questions demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of business development, and Robert was impressed by her strategic thinking. The professional environment they had created felt collaborative and forward-thinking, exactly the kind of partnership that leads to innovative solutions and client success. Over the following weeks, Maria continued seeking Robert's guidance, but her questions became increasingly focused on specific client relationships and internal firm dynamics. She wanted to understand the decision-making processes of senior partners, the financial structure of major contracts, and the strategic vulnerabilities of their main competitors. Robert initially interpreted this as ambition and a desire to contribute more strategically to the firm's growth. He began sharing more sensitive information about client negotiations, partnership discussions, and long-term business planning. Maria's enthusiasm for understanding the bigger picture seemed like the mark of a future leader, and Robert was pleased to mentor someone with such clear professional aspirations. What Robert didn't anticipate was that his generous sharing of strategic insights and confidential business information was about to teach him a brutal lesson about workplace loyalty. Sometimes our willingness to invest in others' professional development can blind us to their true motivations. On the 10th day of their intensive mentoring relationship, Robert discovered that Maria had been using their conversations to prepare for interviews with their firm's biggest competitor. A mutual contact in the industry mentioned seeing Maria at the competitor's office and praised Robert for training such a well-informed candidate who knew so much about the market dynamics. The betrayal hit Robert like a professional earthquake. All those strategic discussions, client insights, and business development conversations had been nothing more than competitive intelligence gathering disguised as mentorship. Maria had systematically extracted information about their firm's client relationships, strategic planning, and competitive advantages to position herself as an invaluable asset to their primary rival. Every question about client preferences, every inquiry about partnership dynamics, every request for strategic guidance, it all made perfect sense now in the context of her job search strategy. The frustration of being manipulated was amplified by the potential damage to his firm's competitive position and client relationships. Robert realized that Maria now possessed detailed knowledge about their upcoming proposals, client negotiation strategies, and internal operational procedures that she could leverage at the competing firm. The sense of professional betrayal was devastating, because Robert had not only been deceived personally, but his trust had been weaponized against his own company and colleagues. The very information that he had shared to help Maria grow professionally could now be used to undermine projects he had worked years to develop. The apprendizado was harsh but clear. Strategic information sharing requires careful consideration of long-term loyalty and commitment, not just immediate performance and apparent dedication. Robert spent several days processing this betrayal and evaluating how to protect his firm from potential competitive damage while maintaining his leadership philosophy of supporting team development. He decided to have a direct conversation with Maria about professional ethics and the importance of confidentiality in consulting relationships. When he approached her about the situation, Maria's defensive response and lack of genuine remorse confirmed that her mentorship requests had been calculated moves rather than authentic professional development. Robert documented their conversations and reported the breach of confidential information to senior management, ensuring that appropriate measures were taken to protect ongoing client relationships. The super-assent came from transforming this painful experience into stronger protocols for information sharing and more careful evaluation of team members' long-term commitment to the firm. A month later, when Maria reached out from her new position asking if Robert would serve as a professional reference for a major client proposal, he responded with professional clarity, "I provide references for former colleagues, not former competitors." His response was copied to the senior partners who needed to be aware of potential competitive intelligence issues. 6 months later, when Maria's new firm lost a major contract due to their overconfidence in insider knowledge that had actually been outdated, Robert learned that strategic information is only valuable when combined with authentic relationships and genuine understanding of client needs. Sometimes the best response to workplace betrayal is not anger or retaliation, but the quiet confidence that comes from knowing that authentic professional relationships always outperform calculated manipulation in the long run. Lisa had always believed that remote mentoring was one of the most powerful ways to develop talent in the modern workplace. When Kevin joined their marketing agency as a junior account coordinator, he reached out for guidance on client communication strategies and campaign development processes. Lisa, being the senior training coordinator, was delighted to share her expertise through virtual sessions, believing that investing in junior colleagues' professional growth strengthened the entire organization. The trust she placed in mentoring relationships had consistently resulted in stronger team performance and higher employee retention rates. Kevin seemed genuinely committed to learning, often scheduling early morning calls to discuss challenging client situations and requesting detailed feedback on his campaign proposals. His dedication to improvement impressed Lisa, and she began sharing advanced strategies and insider knowledge that typically took years to develop. For Lisa, remote mentoring wasn't just about skill transfer. It was about building a network of capable professionals who would elevate the industry standard. Kevin began initiating longer mentoring conversations that gradually expanded beyond immediate work challenges to broader discussions about career advancement, industry networking, and leadership development strategies. Lisa found herself sharing insights about the agency's internal promotion processes, client relationship management, and the strategic thinking that senior executives valued most. Kevin asked thoughtful questions about her career trajectory, the lessons she had learned from various client relationships, and the skills that distinguished top performers from average employees. His curiosity about organizational dynamics and professional development made Lisa feel valued as a mentor and validated her belief in knowledge sharing. The remote mentoring relationship felt productive and mutually beneficial, creating the kind of professional connection that makes virtual work environments more engaging. Lisa appreciated having a mentee who seemed genuinely interested in building long-term career success, rather than just completing immediate tasks. Over the following weeks, Kevin's questions became increasingly specific about upcoming agency opportunities, client acquisition strategies, and the decision-making criteria for promotions and leadership roles. Lisa initially attributed this focus to his growing confidence and legitimate ambition for career advancement. He wanted to understand how senior leaders evaluated performance, what clients valued most in account management, and how successful campaigns were developed and executed. Kevin's enthusiasm for understanding the strategic aspects of their business seemed like the mark of a future leader, and Lisa was happy to share her expertise. She began providing more detailed insights about client preferences, competitive positioning, and the internal politics that influenced major business decisions. What Lisa didn't realize was that her generous mentoring and trust in Kevin's professional development was about to reveal a harsh truth about workplace loyalty and strategic career maneuvering. On the 12th day of their intensive mentoring relationship, Lisa discovered that Kevin had been simultaneously interviewing for senior positions at 3 different agencies, using the strategic insights and client knowledge she had shared to position himself as an experienced professional. A former colleague mentioned seeing Kevin's impressive interview performance, where he demonstrated remarkable understanding of client psychology and campaign strategy for someone so junior. The betrayal felt like a professional gut punch. All those mentoring sessions, strategic discussions, and career development conversations had been nothing more than an accelerated learning program designed to help Kevin leapfrog the normal career progression process. He had systematically extracted her years of hard-earned expertise to create a competitive advantage in job interviews, essentially using her mentorship to skip the learning curve that most professionals navigate through experience and time. The frustration of being manipulated was compounded by the realization that Kevin had never intended to build a long-term career at their agency or contribute to the team's success. Every question about client relationships, every inquiry about campaign strategies, every request for career advice, it all made sense now in the context of his job search strategy. Lisa realized that her commitment to developing talent had been exploited by someone who saw mentorship as a shortcut to advancement rather than a foundation for mutual professional growth. The sense of betrayal cut deep because Lisa had not only been deceived personally, but her expertise had been commoditized and used to compete against her own organization. The very knowledge that she had shared to strengthen their team was now being leveraged to help Kevin secure positions that should have required years of additional experience and development. Lisa spent considerable time reflecting on this experience and its implications for her approach to mentoring and professional development. She realized that while her commitment to helping others grow professionally was admirable, she needed to establish better boundaries around strategic information sharing and evaluate mentees' long-term commitment to mutual success. The apprendizado was painful but valuable. Effective mentoring requires a foundation of shared values and genuine investment in collective success, not just individual advancement. When Kevin reached out a week later asking for a LinkedIn recommendation to support his job applications, Lisa responded professionally but firmly. "I provide recommendations based on demonstrated loyalty and contribution to team success." Her message was clear. Mentorship is a relationship built on mutual respect and shared commitment, not a transactional exchange of expertise for personal gain. 3 months later, when Kevin contacted Lisa from his new senior position, asking if she would consider consulting for his new agency, she replied with the wisdom gained from experience. "I mentor colleagues, not competitors." Lisa learned that the most valuable professional relationships are built on authentic commitment to shared success rather than individual advancement at any cost. The superação came from understanding that while betrayal in mentoring relationships is painful, it also provides clarity about the difference between genuine professional development and strategic manipulation. Sometimes the most important lesson from a mentoring relationship is learning to recognize when someone values your expertise more than your partnership and having the wisdom to protect both accordingly. Daniel had always prided himself on being the kind of operations manager who put team success above personal convenience. When Rachel joined their logistics company as a supply chain analyst, she quickly demonstrated exceptional analytical skills, but often struggled with the demanding weekend reporting requirements that clients expected. Daniel noticed her challenges and began offering to handle the weekend data compilation and client communications, believing that supporting team members during their adjustment period was crucial for long-term success. The trust he placed in his colleagues had always fostered a collaborative environment where everyone could contribute their best work. Rachel expressed genuine gratitude for his support, often commenting on how his weekend assistance allowed her to focus on the complex analytical work that she did best. For Daniel, providing coverage wasn't about micromanaging. It was about creating conditions where each team member could excel in their strengths, while the team delivered consistent results to demanding clients. Rachel began scheduling regular strategy sessions with Daniel, supposedly to better understand the operational context behind her analytical work and to develop more effective client reporting processes. These conversations frequently extended into detailed discussions about departmental performance metrics, client relationship management, and Daniel's insights into senior management's strategic priorities. Daniel found himself sharing information about upcoming organizational changes, budget allocation decisions, and the performance criteria that leadership used to evaluate different departments. Rachel listened intently, asked sophisticated questions about operational efficiency, and seemed genuinely interested in understanding how her analytical work fit into the broader business strategy. Her curiosity about organizational dynamics and her apparent commitment to contributing strategically to the company's success impressed Daniel. The professional environment they created felt like a true partnership, where analytical expertise and operational experience combined to deliver superior client service. Over the following weeks, Rachel's questions became increasingly focused on Daniel's specific responsibilities, his relationships with senior executives, and the strategic challenges facing the operations department. She wanted to understand his decision-making processes, the metrics that senior management used to evaluate operational performance, and the long-term vision for departmental growth and development. Daniel initially interpreted this as career ambition and a desire to prepare for future leadership responsibilities within the operations team. He began sharing more detailed information about client expectations, internal performance standards, and the strategic initiatives that would define the department's future success. Rachel's enthusiasm for understanding the bigger picture seemed like evidence of executive potential, and Daniel was pleased to mentor someone who demonstrated such clear leadership aspirations. What Daniel couldn't have anticipated was that his generous sharing of operational insights and strategic information was about to teach him a devastating lesson about workplace loyalty and career advancement ethics. On the 14th day of their intensive collaboration, Daniel learned that Rachel had been using their strategic discussions to prepare a comprehensive proposal for restructuring the operations department, with herself positioned as the new department head. A colleague in HR mentioned that Rachel had submitted a detailed analysis of operational inefficiencies and proposed solutions that demonstrated remarkable insight into departmental challenges and strategic opportunities. The betrayal hit Daniel like a professional avalanche. All those strategy sessions, operational discussions, and leadership development conversations had been nothing more than research for a hostile takeover of his own department. Rachel had systematically gathered information about his management approach, departmental vulnerabilities, and strategic planning to build a case for why she should replace him in the leadership role. The frustration of being manipulated was magnified by the sophistication of Rachel's strategy and the way she had used his own insights against him. Every question about client relationships, every inquiry about operational challenges, every request for strategic guidance, it all made perfect sense now in the context of her promotion proposal. Daniel realized that while he had been focused on supporting her professional development and building a stronger team, Rachel had been conducting a detailed analysis of his leadership style and departmental management to identify opportunities for organizational restructuring. The sense of professional betrayal was overwhelming because Daniel had not only been deceived personally, but his commitment to mentoring and team development had been weaponized to undermine his own career and leadership position. The very openness and collaborative approach that made him an effective manager had been exploited to gather intelligence for a strategic career move. Daniel spent several sleepless nights processing this betrayal and developing a response strategy that would protect his position while maintaining his integrity and leadership philosophy. He realized that Rachel's proposal, while strategically clever, was based on incomplete information and assumptions about operational challenges that required years of experience to fully understand. The apprendizado was harsh but valuable. Leadership development and strategic information sharing must be balanced with careful evaluation of long-term loyalty and genuine commitment to collective success. When Daniel learned that Rachel's proposal was being seriously considered by senior management, he prepared his own comprehensive analysis of departmental performance and strategic opportunities, demonstrating the depth of experience and relationship management that effective operations leadership requires. A month later, when Rachel's restructuring proposal was rejected due to concerns about her limited operational experience and understanding of client relationship complexities, she approached Daniel asking if they could rebuild their working relationship and whether he would support her career development within the existing departmental structure. Daniel considered his response carefully before replying, "I develop team members, not replacement candidates." His response was professional, but clear about the boundaries between mentorship and strategic career planning. 6 months later, when Rachel left the company for a position at a competitor, Daniel reflected on how the experience had taught him to distinguish between genuine professional development and calculated career advancement strategies. The superação came from understanding that while betrayal in professional relationships is painful, it also provides valuable insights into the difference between collaborative leadership and strategic manipulation, making him a more discerning and effective leader. Patricia had built her consulting career on the principle that knowledge shared multiplies success for everyone involved. When James joined their management consulting firm as a business development associate, He demonstrated impressive client research skills and often sought her guidance on proposal development and client relationship strategies. Patricia, being a senior consultant with 15 years of industry experience, naturally offered to share her expertise in client psychology, negotiation tactics, and the nuanced art of building long-term consulting relationships. The trust she placed in developing junior colleagues had consistently resulted in stronger proposals, better client outcomes, and a more collaborative firm culture. James seemed genuinely eager to learn the sophisticated aspects of consulting work, often staying late to discuss complex client scenarios and requesting detailed feedback on his approach to relationship building. His dedication to mastering the consulting craft impressed Patricia, and she began sharing advanced strategies and client insights that typically took years to develop through trial and error. For Patricia, mentoring wasn't just about individual success. It was about elevating the entire profession through knowledge transfer and collaborative excellence. James began initiating extended mentoring sessions that gradually expanded from proposal techniques to comprehensive discussions about client acquisition strategies, competitive positioning, and the psychological factors that influence major consulting decisions. Patricia found herself sharing detailed insights about her most successful client relationships, the strategic approaches that had won significant contracts, and the common mistakes that derailed potentially lucrative consulting opportunities. James asked thoughtful questions about her methodology for understanding client needs, her techniques for building trust with C-level executives, and the strategic frameworks she used to structure complex engagements. His curiosity about the business development aspects of consulting made Patricia feel valued as a mentor and validated her belief that experienced consultants had a responsibility to develop the next generation of industry leaders. The mentoring relationship felt productive and intellectually stimulating, creating the kind of professional dialogue that makes consulting work more meaningful and impactful. Over the following weeks, James's questions became increasingly specific about Patricia's current client relationships, ongoing proposal opportunities, and the detailed strategies she was using for particular prospects. He wanted to understand her research methodologies, her relationship-building timelines, and the specific value propositions that resonated with different types of clients. Patricia initially attributed this focus to his growing confidence and legitimate desire to contribute more strategically to the firm's business development efforts. She began sharing more sensitive information about client decision-making processes, competitive intelligence, and the internal politics that influenced major consulting purchases. James's enthusiasm for understanding the strategic aspects of client acquisition seemed like evidence of future leadership potential, and Patricia was pleased to share her hard-earned expertise with someone who demonstrated such clear professional ambition. What Patricia didn't anticipate was that her generous sharing of client insights and competitive strategies was about to reveal a harsh truth about professional loyalty and the commoditization of expertise. On the 16th day of their intensive mentoring relationship, Patricia discovered that James had been using her client acquisition strategies and relationship insights to build his own independent consulting practice on the side. A mutual client mentioned that James had approached them with a proposal that was remarkably similar to Patricia's methodology, but offered at a significantly lower rate. The betrayal felt like a professional earthquake. All those mentoring sessions, strategic discussions, and client relationship conversations had been nothing more than competitive intelligence gathering disguised as professional development. James had systematically extracted her years of expertise, client insights, and proprietary methodologies to create his own competing consulting service, essentially using her mentorship to shortcut the years of experience and relationship building that successful consulting requires. The frustration of being manipulated was compounded by the realization that James had been strategically targeting her existing clients with modified versions of her own proposals and approaches. Every question about client psychology, every inquiry about relationship-building strategies, every request for competitive insights, it all made sense now in the context of his parallel business development activities. Patricia realized that her commitment to knowledge sharing and professional development had been exploited by someone who saw mentorship as a free consulting education rather than a foundation for mutual industry advancement. The sense of betrayal cut deep, because Patricia had not only been deceived personally, but her intellectual property and client relationships were now being used to compete directly against her own business. The very expertise that she had shared to strengthen the consulting profession was being leveraged to undermine her own practice and client relationships. Patricia spent considerable time evaluating how this experience should influence her approach to mentoring and professional development, without compromising her commitment to industry advancement. She realized that while sharing knowledge was important for the profession's growth, she needed to establish clearer boundaries around proprietary methodologies and confidential client information. The apprendizado was painful but essential. Effective mentoring requires a foundation of shared professional ethics and genuine commitment to industry standards, not just individual advancement at any cost. When James approached her a week later asking for a LinkedIn endorsement to support his independent consulting launch, Patricia responded with professional clarity. "I endorse colleagues who honor the profession's ethical standards." Her message established clear boundaries between legitimate professional development and competitive exploitation of mentorship relationships. 4 months later, when James's independent practice struggled due to his lack of genuine expertise and authentic client relationships, he reached out asking if Patricia would consider a partnership or collaboration arrangement. She replied with the wisdom gained from experience. "I collaborate with consultants, not competitors who built their practice on borrowed expertise." Patricia learned that the most valuable professional relationships are built on mutual respect for intellectual property and shared commitment to industry excellence rather than opportunistic knowledge extraction. The superasome came from understanding that while betrayal in mentoring relationships is disappointing, it also provides clarity about the difference between genuine professional development and strategic exploitation, making her a more discerning mentor while maintaining her commitment to industry advancement through ethical knowledge sharing. Michael had always believed that developing future leaders was one of the most important responsibilities of senior management. When Amanda joined their financial services company as a senior analyst, she quickly distinguished herself through exceptional analytical skills and strategic thinking that impressed both clients and colleagues. Michael, as the department head, began offering comprehensive career guidance, believing that investing in high-potential employees was essential for organizational sustainability and growth. The trust he placed in mentoring relationships had consistently resulted in stronger departmental performance and improved succession planning throughout his 15-year leadership tenure. Amanda seemed genuinely committed to learning the complexities of departmental management, often requesting guidance on team leadership, strategic planning, and the nuanced challenges of managing client relationships at the executive level. Her apparent dedication to professional growth and leadership development impressed Michael, and he began sharing advanced management strategies and organizational insights that he had developed through years of executive experience. For Michael, mentoring wasn't just about individual advancement. It was about building institutional knowledge and ensuring long-term organizational success. Amanda began scheduling regular executive coaching sessions with Michael, ostensibly to develop her leadership capabilities and prepare for future management responsibilities within the department. These conversations frequently evolved into detailed discussions about organizational strategy, senior leadership decision-making processes, and Michael's approach to managing complex stakeholder relationships. Michael found himself sharing insights about board-level communications, budget management strategies, and the political dynamics that influenced major organizational decisions. Amanda listened attentively, asked sophisticated questions about executive leadership, and seemed genuinely interested in understanding the strategic thinking that distinguished effective department heads from tactical managers. Her curiosity about organizational governance and her apparent commitment to building long-term leadership capabilities made Michael feel confident about the department's future leadership pipeline. The mentoring relationship felt like a strategic investment in organizational continuity and excellence, exactly the kind of succession planning that ensures institutional knowledge transfer and sustained performance. Over the following weeks, Amanda's questions became increasingly focused on Michael's specific leadership challenges, his relationships with senior executives, and the strategic vulnerabilities facing the department in an evolving market environment. She wanted to understand his decision-making frameworks, the metrics that the board used to evaluate departmental performance, and the long-term vision for organizational growth and competitive positioning. Michael initially interpreted this focus as exceptional leadership ambition and a sophisticated understanding of executive responsibility. He began sharing more sensitive information about organizational challenges, competitive threats, and the strategic initiatives that would define the company's future success. Amanda's enthusiasm for understanding the complexity of executive leadership seemed like evidence of genuine leadership potential, and Michael was pleased to mentor someone who demonstrated such advanced strategic thinking. What Michael couldn't have predicted was that his generous sharing of leadership insights and organizational intelligence was about to teach him a devastating lesson about succession planning and workplace loyalty. On the 18th day of their intensive mentoring relationship, Michael discovered that Amanda had been documenting their conversations and using his strategic insights to prepare a comprehensive leadership transition proposal for the board of directors. A trusted colleague in executive management mentioned that Amanda had submitted a detailed analysis of departmental challenges and proposed leadership changes that demonstrated remarkable insight into organizational needs and strategic opportunities. The betrayal hit Michael like a professional tsunami. All those leadership coaching sessions, strategic discussions, and succession planning conversations had been nothing more than research for a calculated leadership coup within his own department. Amanda had systematically gathered information about his management approach, organizational challenges, and strategic planning to build a compelling case for why she should replace him as department head, using his own insights and institutional knowledge against him. The frustration of being manipulated was amplified by the sophistication of Amanda's strategy and the way she had leveraged his commitment to mentoring and leadership development. Every question about organizational dynamics, every inquiry about executive challenges, every request for strategic guidance, it all made perfect sense now in the context of her leadership transition proposal. Michael realized that while he had been focused on developing her leadership capabilities and ensuring organizational continuity, Amanda had been conducting a detailed assessment of his leadership style and departmental management to identify opportunities for executive restructuring. The sense of professional betrayal was overwhelming because Michael had not only been deceived personally, but his dedication to succession planning and knowledge transfer had been weaponized to undermine his own leadership position and career trajectory. The very openness and developmental approach that made him an effective leader had been exploited to gather intelligence for a strategic leadership challenge. Michael spent several intense days processing this betrayal and formulating a response that would protect his leadership position while maintaining his integrity and commitment to organizational excellence. He realized that Amanda's leadership proposal, while strategically crafted, was based on theoretical knowledge rather than the practical experience and relationship depth that effective departmental leadership requires. The apprendizado was profound and painful. Leadership development and strategic mentoring must be balanced with careful evaluation of long-term loyalty and genuine commitment to collective organizational success rather than individual advancement. When Michael learned that Amanda's transition proposal was being seriously considered by the board, he prepared his own comprehensive strategic plan for departmental growth and organizational development, demonstrating the depth of institutional knowledge and stakeholder relationships that effective executive leadership demands. 6 weeks later, when Amanda's leadership transition proposal was ultimately rejected due to board concerns about her limited executive experience and understanding of complex stakeholder management, she approached Michael requesting a reset of their mentoring relationship and asking for his support in developing her leadership capabilities within the existing organizational structure. Michael considered his response thoughtfully before replying, "I develop future leaders, not leadership challengers." His response was professional, but established clear boundaries between authentic succession planning and strategic career maneuvering. A year later, when Amanda left the company for an executive position elsewhere, Michael reflected on how the experience had enhanced his ability to distinguish between genuine leadership development and calculated advancement strategies. The soupçon came from understanding that effective mentoring requires not only sharing knowledge and expertise, but also evaluating the underlying motivations and ethical foundations that guide how that knowledge will be applied in service of organizational success, rather than individual ambition. Sarah had built her reputation as a senior director who believed in collaborative business development and strategic partnerships that benefited all parties involved. When Thomas joined their technology consulting firm as a business development manager, he demonstrated exceptional market analysis skills and often sought her guidance on client acquisition strategies and partnership development opportunities. Sarah, with her extensive network and 20 years of industry experience, naturally offered to share her expertise in strategic alliances, joint venture structuring, and the sophisticated art of building mutually beneficial business relationships. The trust she placed in developing strategic partnerships had consistently resulted in expanded market opportunities, innovative service offerings, and sustainable competitive advantages for her firm. Thomas seemed genuinely interested in learning the complex dynamics of partnership development, often requesting detailed explanations of her negotiation strategies and relationship-building methodologies. His apparent dedication to mastering the nuances of strategic business development impressed Sarah, and she began sharing advanced insights about market positioning, competitive intelligence, and the psychological factors that influence major partnership decisions. For Sarah, mentoring in business development wasn't just about individual success. It was about creating a network of skilled professionals who could identify and develop opportunities that elevated the entire industry. Thomas began initiating comprehensive strategic planning sessions with Sarah, supposedly to develop his understanding of partnership evaluation criteria and long-term business development strategies. These conversations frequently expanded into detailed discussions about her firm's competitive advantages, client portfolio analysis, and the strategic vulnerabilities that could be addressed through targeted partnerships or acquisitions. Sarah found herself sharing insights about her most successful partnership negotiations, the due diligence processes that had prevented costly mistakes, and the strategic frameworks she used to evaluate potential business opportunities. Thomas asked sophisticated questions about her methodology for assessing partnership value, her techniques for structuring complex deals, and the risk management strategies that protected her firm's interests while maximizing collaborative benefits. His curiosity about the strategic aspects of business development made Sarah feel valued as a mentor and validated her belief that experienced directors had a responsibility to share knowledge that could strengthen the industry's overall partnership culture. The mentoring relationship felt intellectually challenging and strategically valuable, creating the kind of professional dialogue that makes senior-level business development more meaningful and impactful. Over the following weeks, Thomas's questions became increasingly specific about Sarah's firm's internal operations, financial performance metrics, and the detailed strategies they were using for particular market segments. He wanted to understand their service delivery capabilities, operational cost structures, and the specific competitive advantages that differentiated them from other consulting firms in their market space. Sarah initially attributed this focus to his growing strategic sophistication and legitimate desire to contribute more effectively to the firm's business development efforts. She began sharing more sensitive information about client relationships, revenue projections, and the internal challenges that were shaping their long-term strategic planning. Thomas's enthusiasm for understanding the comprehensive business model seemed like evidence of executive potential and genuine commitment to the firm's strategic success. What Sarah didn't anticipate was that her generous sharing of strategic insights and operational intelligence was about to reveal a devastating truth about professional loyalty and the weaponization of mentorship relationships. On the 20th day of their intensive mentoring relationship, Sarah discovered that Thomas had been systematically documenting their conversations and using her strategic insights to prepare a comprehensive acquisition proposal for a private equity firm that specialized in consulting industry consolidation. A trusted industry contact mentioned that Thomas had been seen presenting a detailed analysis of her firm's operations and market position that demonstrated remarkable insight into the company's strategic value and acquisition potential. The betrayal felt like a professional earthquake that shattered her fundamental beliefs about trust and collaboration in business development. All those strategic planning sessions, operational discussions, and partnership development conversations had been nothing more than due diligence research disguised as professional mentorship. Thomas had systematically extracted her firm's most sensitive strategic information, competitive advantages, and operational insights to create a compelling investment thesis for external parties interested in acquiring or merging with her company. The frustration of being manipulated was compounded by the realization that Thomas had been conducting sophisticated competitive intelligence gathering while positioned as a trusted internal colleague and mentee. Every question about operational efficiency, every inquiry about strategic challenges, every request for market analysis, it all made perfect sense now in the context of his external acquisition research activities. Sarah realized that her commitment to knowledge sharing and strategic development had been exploited by someone who saw mentorship as an opportunity for insider access, rather than a foundation for mutual professional growth and industry advancement. The sense of betrayal cut deeper than any personal disappointment, because Sarah had not only been deceived individually, but her firm's strategic information and competitive positioning were now being used by external parties to evaluate acquisition opportunities without the knowledge or consent of senior management or stakeholders. The very expertise and institutional knowledge that she had shared to develop internal capabilities was being leveraged to potentially undermine her firm's independence and strategic autonomy. Sarah spent several sleepless nights evaluating the full implications of this betrayal and developing a comprehensive response strategy that would protect her firm's strategic interests while addressing the serious breach of professional ethics and fiduciary responsibility. She realized that Thomas's acquisition research, while strategically sophisticated, was based on incomplete information and assumptions about the firm's value proposition that failed to account for the relationship-based assets and institutional knowledge that made the company truly valuable. The apprendizado was profound and life-changing. Strategic mentoring and knowledge sharing require not only evaluation of professional competence, but also careful assessment of underlying loyalties and ethical commitments that determine how shared information will be used. When Sarah learned that Thomas's acquisition proposal was being actively considered by external investors, she immediately documented the breach of confidentiality and reported the situation to senior management and legal counsel, ensuring that appropriate protective measures were implemented to safeguard the firm's strategic interests and competitive position. 2 months later, when the private equity acquisition attempt was ultimately unsuccessful due to the firm's strong defensive positioning and stakeholder loyalty, Thomas reached out to Sarah requesting a professional conversation about potential future collaboration opportunities and asking whether their previous mentoring relationship could be reframed in a more formal consulting arrangement. Sarah responded with the clarity that comes from hard-earned wisdom. "I develop colleagues, not acquisition consultants." Her response was copied to senior management and legal counsel as part of the ongoing protective measures surrounding the firm's strategic security. A year later, when Thomas's reputation in the industry had been significantly damaged by the exposure of his unethical intelligence-gathering activities, Sarah reflected on how the experience had transformed her approach to mentoring and strategic information sharing without compromising her commitment to professional development and industry advancement. The supersum came from understanding that while betrayal in strategic relationships is devastating, it also provides invaluable insight into the difference between authentic professional collaboration and calculated exploitation, making her a more discerning mentor and strategic leader, while reinforcing her commitment to ethical business development practices. The choice is yours, but the cost of inaction is your career trajectory. Subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell to continue learning the advanced strategies that separate exceptional leaders from well-intentioned victims. Because in tomorrow's workplace, your success won't depend on how much you know. It will depend on how wisely you share what you know, and with whom you choose to build your professional legacy.